The Tokoloshe, the silent terror. The moon hung high over the small village of Malanga, casting long, twisted shadows across the dirt paths that wound between the humble thatched huts. The air was thick with the scent of wet earth and the distant rhythmic sound of drums from a gathering that lasted far into the night. But in the stillness of the evening, something darker lurked, something ancient, forgotten by many but feared by a select few. It was in the quiet moments that the Tokoloshe came alive. The legend was well known among the elders, passed down through generations like a whispered warning carried on the wind. The Tokoloshe, a creature of darkness and mischief, was said to be small in stature, often no taller than a child, but its evil nature made it far more terrifying than any human could fathom. With eyes like glowing embers, sharp claws, and an insatiable hunger for chaos, the Tokoloshe was said to appear only when it was summoned or when its wrath was provoked. It could slip into a home in the dead of night, causing havoc, stealing children, and leaving a trail of fear in its wake. But there was a secret most people didn't know. The Tokoloshe had its own name, Mbali, the Forgotten One. She wasn't merely a creature of malice, but an entity born of a broken promise, a betrayal of love that turned into pure hatred. And that is where the story Mbali had once been a young woman, full of life and promise. She was the daughter of a respected elder, a woman revered for her beauty and wisdom in the village. As a girl, she was taught the ancient ways of the land, how to harvest crops with reverence, how to call upon the spirits for guidance, and how to respect the natural world. Her father had raised her with love, with the hope that one day she would take his place as the keeper of their people's stories, their history, and their traditions. But Mbali had a secret. In her heart, she harbored a love for a young man named Sifo. He was a stranger from a neighboring village, a traveler who had come to seek wisdom from Mbali's father. Sifo was handsome, charming, and free-spirited. He spoke with such passion about the future and the world beyond the hills that Mbali found herself swept up in his promises of adventure, of escaping the confines of the village life. They shared stolen moments in the quiet of the evening, their love blossoming under the moonlit sky. However, Sifo's love was a fleeting one. When the time came for him to leave, he did so with a broken promise. He promised he would return to her, to marry her and take her far away. But the truth was, he had already promised his heart to another, a woman of his own people. Mbali, heartbroken and betrayed, turned to the elders for solace. But the elders could offer her no comfort. They said that in the absence of love, there was only darkness. And so, darkness took root within Mbali's soul. Overcome by grief, anger, and an unshakable sense of betrayal, Mbali sought out the most feared of all beings, the witch doctor of the forest. Known for his knowledge of dark magic, the witch doctor was said to have the power to summon spirits from beyond the grave, to bend the forces of nature to his will. It was he who could help Mbali, but the price was steep. In the quiet of a moonless night, Mbali traveled deep into the forest to the witch doctor's hut, hidden among the towering trees. The witch doctor listened to her sorrow, nodded solemnly, and gave her a choice: to either heal her broken heart and let go of her pain, or to channel her grief into a power that could never be undone. Mbali chose the latter. Her bitterness consumed her, and she vowed that no one would ever betray her again. The witch doctor performed the ritual, and the forces of darkness entered Mbali's being. Her body shriveled and twisted, her heart turned to stone, and her once beautiful face became an expressionless mask. In that moment, the Tokoloshe was born. She was no longer a woman of flesh and blood, but a creature of shadow and malice, a spirit bound to the earth by her anger. The Tokoloshe, now cursed to roam the earth for eternity, would bring fear and suffering to those who dared to cross her path. For years, the Tokoloshe wandered the land, seeking out the vulnerable and the broken-hearted, feeding off their fear and sorrow. But it was in the village of Malanga that she found a new source of torment. It was here that she encountered a family whose heart was as fragile as her own had been long ago. The Malanga family was once the pride of the village. They were hard-working farmers, respected by their peers. But when tragedy struck, when the father, Vusi, fell ill, the family's fortunes began to change. Vusi's illness left him weak, and his wife, Nandi, was forced to work tirelessly to provide for their children. The family's once happy home became filled with tension, fear, and desperation. The children, once lively and full of laughter, grew quiet, haunted by their father's sickness and their mother's worry. The Tokoloshe, sensing the weakness in their hearts, saw an opportunity. One night, as the family lay in bed, exhausted from the weight of their troubles, the creature crept into their home. It slinked in through the cracks in the walls, its small form barely visible in the darkness. The Tokoloshe was a master of stealth, moving without a sound, her glowing eyes the only indication of her presence. It first visited the children. The youngest, Thandi, was the first to hear it. A soft rustling in the corner of the room, followed by the faint sound of scratching. When she turned, she saw a shadow move across the wall, a figure too small to be human, but too terrifying to ignore. Her heart raced as the figure drew closer, its eyes locking onto hers with an unholy hunger. But the Tokoloshe was not content with just the children. It moved through the house, spreading fear and unrest. In the darkness, Vusi's illness grew worse, his body racked with strange convulsions. Nandi, desperate to save her family, went to the village healer, who revealed the truth. The Tokoloshe had come, and it would not leave until the family was broken beyond repair. Desperate and terrified, Nandi sought out the village elder, the one person who might know how to rid her home of the creature. The elder, old and wise, revealed the ancient truth of the Tokoloshe. To banish it, one had to confront their deepest fear, their greatest sorrow, and overcome it. It was not enough to fight the creature directly. One had to find the source of its power within themselves. Nandi returned to her home, her heart heavy with the knowledge that she had to face her own grief. The Tokoloshe had fed on her fear, on her helplessness, and she had to confront the root of it, the fear of losing her family, the fear of failure, and the pain of seeing her husband suffer. With a fierce resolve, Nandi stood in the center of her home and called out to the creature. The Tokoloshe appeared, its glowing eyes fixed on her. Nandi spoke, her voice trembling but determined. "I will not let fear control me. I will fight for my family, for the love that binds us. You have no power over me." For the first time, the Tokoloshe hesitated. The creature, born of darkness and anger, realized that its victim was no longer afraid. The power it had drawn from fear began to fade, and with it, the Tokoloshe's strength diminished. The shadows around her began to recede, her twisted form returning to the darkness from which it came. In the end, the Tokoloshe vanished, leaving only a faint echo of its presence behind. The village of Malanga was free, and the family was whole again. But the shadow of the creature's terror would never be forgotten. For as long as fear and anger existed, the Tokoloshe would be waiting, ready to strike again. Some say the Tokoloshe still roams the world, waiting for the broken-hearted and the lost souls who are too afraid to face their fears. In every shadow, in every corner of the night, the creature lingers, a reminder that darkness is never truly gone. It only waits for the right moment to return.